Good morning, everyone. It is a privilege to share this moment with you today, to reflect on a paradox that at first glance seems to contradict our most cherished virtues. How the very act of kindness, a quality we hold in such high esteem, can sometimes unexpectedly invite disrespect from others. Kindness, in its purest form, is a manifestation of compassion, empathy, and selfless giving. It is the light that warms human connection. Yet, many of us have experienced moments where our genuine attempts at kindness were met not with gratitude or respect, but with indifference, exploitation, or even outright disregard. This perplexing dynamic is not an indictment of kindness itself, but rather an invitation to understand its true nature and the subtle energetic laws that govern human interaction. The core of this paradox lies in a fundamental misconception, the belief that kindness, to be truly virtuous, must be unbounded, limitless, and devoid of any form of discernment or self-preservation. We are often taught that true generosity means giving without expectation, without limit. While the spirit of non-attachment in giving is indeed noble, translating this into a practical, everyday approach without wisdom can lead to unintended consequences. When kindness lacks boundaries, it becomes a kindness without discernment, a benevolence that fails to differentiate between genuine need and exploitative demand, between respectful reciprocity and entitled taking. It becomes a boundless ocean without shores, where anything can enter and anything can be taken without acknowledgement or respect for the source. Consider the energetic nature of interaction. Every act of giving and receiving is an exchange of energy. When you offer kindness, you are extending your energy, your time, your resources. If this flow is consistently one-sided, or if it is given without clear boundaries that define the sacredness of your own energetic well, a subtle imbalance begins to form. Your kindness, rather than being perceived as a precious gift, can begin to be perceived as a readily available infinite resource, much like the air we breathe, always there, never needing appreciation or careful handling. This perception, consciously or unconsciously, diminishes its value in the eyes of the recipient. Furthermore, a kindness that lacks boundaries often stems not solely from pure altruism, but sometimes from an underlying fear, the fear of conflict, the fear of disapproval, the fear of not being liked, or the fear of appearing selfish. When kindness is driven by these fears, it becomes a people-pleasing mechanism rather than an authentic expression of compassion. People-pleasing, by its very nature, signals a lack of self-worth and a willingness to compromise one's own needs and boundaries for the sake of external acceptance. And unfortunately, in the intricate dance of human power dynamics, a perceived lack of self-worth or boundaries can, regrettably, invite disrespect. It's a subtle signal that says, "My needs are less important than yours, and I am willing to be inconvenienced or undervalued to maintain your favor." True compassion, on the other hand, is not blind. It is wise. It understands that setting boundaries is not an act of unkindness, but an act of self-respect. Paradoxically, an act of deeper compassion for both oneself and the other. It recognizes that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to allow them to experience the natural consequences of their actions, to allow them to find their own strengths, or to clearly communicate your own limits. This does not diminish your benevolence, it purifies it, making it stronger, more discerning, and ultimately more impactful. The misconception of unbounded kindness is a powerful lesson. True kindness must be rooted in wisdom and self-respect, for only then can it command the respect it truly deserves. Of why genuine kindness can be met with such a disheartening lack of appreciation. Consider your personal energy, your vitality, your time, and your emotional reserves as a wellspring. When you extend kindness, you are drawing from this well to offer something to another. In a healthy, balanced, energetic exchange, there is a natural flow. You give, and there is either direct reciprocity or the giving is replenishing in itself, as in genuine, joyful altruism that asks for nothing in return. However, when kindness becomes unbounded, when it lacks clear boundaries and discernment, this natural flow is disrupted. You are constantly giving, without adequate replenishment or without others valuing the source. The well begins to run dry. This continuous outflow without reciprocal input creates a subtle yet profound energetic power imbalance. In any relationship, whether personal or professional, an unspoken understanding of give and take is established. If one party consistently gives and the other consistently takes, the giver becomes perceived as an infinite resource, an energetic well that can be drawn from without consequence. This can lead to what some spiritual traditions describe as energetic vampirism, not necessarily malicious but often unconscious. People are drawn to energy, and if you are constantly radiating openness and availability without boundaries, you become an easy target for those who are energetically depleted themselves or who simply have not learned the discipline of self-sufficiency. When you are constantly giving, always available, always solving problems, always saying yes, you inadvertently prevent others from developing their own capacity for self-reliance and responsibility. They become accustomed to you filling their gaps, anticipating their needs, or rescuing them from their own consequences. This creates a subtle form of dependency, and ironically, dependency rarely fosters genuine respect. Instead, it can breed entitlement in the recipient, who begins to view your kindness not as a gift, but as an obligation. You are no longer seen as a benevolent individual, but as a utility, a resource to be leveraged. Furthermore, a depleted energetic reservoir manifests externally. When you are energetically drained, your demeanor may shift. You might become quieter, more withdrawn, perhaps even subtly resentful, though you may try to mask it with continued kindness. This subtle shift in your energetic signature is unconsciously picked up by others. Your lack of vibrant energy, your quiet depletion, can be misinterpreted as weakness or a lack of self-worth. It projects a subconscious signal that says, "I am not valuing my own energy, so you don't need to value it either." Disrespect often flows into these energetically empty spaces. The solution is not to stop being kind, but to become a vibrant channel rather than a depleted reservoir. A channel allows energy to flow through it, but it also maintains its own integrity, drawing from a larger source, not solely from its own finite reserves. This means cultivating self-care, learning to say no graciously but firmly, and ensuring that your acts of kindness are rooted in genuine desire to uplift, not in a desperate need to be liked or valued. It means respecting your own energy first, so that when you give, it comes from a place of abundance and power, and is therefore received with the respect and appreciation it truly deserves. A well that is constantly replenished provides life. A well that is only drained eventually yields only dust. For some, become an open invitation to push, to exploit, or to simply disregard. Assertiveness is often misunderstood as aggression or unkindness. This is a profound misconception. True assertiveness is the calm, clear, and respectful communication of one's own needs, boundaries, and values. It is the ability to say yes when you mean yes, and no when you mean no, without guilt or fear. When kindness exists without this backbone of assertiveness, it can be perceived as passive, pliable, or even fearful. Individuals, consciously or unconsciously, are constantly testing the boundaries of those around them. If they encounter no resistance, no clear limits, the path of least resistance becomes one of taking, pushing, and ultimately disrespect. Consider the simple act of setting a boundary regarding your time or resources. If you are always available, always willing to drop everything to help, always accommodating, even at your own expense, You teach others that your time and resources are less valuable than theirs. You signal that your needs are secondary. This is not a judgment on their character. It is a response to the implicit permission you have given. When a person consistently perceives that they can take without consequence, or that their needs will always trump yours, the natural respect that comes from recognizing another's autonomy and self-worth begins to erode. They may not intend to disrespect you, but their actions become disrespectful by virtue of your lack of defined limits. This dynamic is particularly evident in situations where kindness is accompanied by a reluctance to address issues directly or to confront conflict. If you consistently avoid challenging behavior, if you absorb mistreatment with a kind smile, or if you consistently prioritize harmony over truth, you inadvertently teach others that their disrespectful actions are acceptable. Your kindness in this context becomes an enabler of their poor behavior rather than a force for positive change. They may not respect you enough to change because they have learned that there are no repercussions for their actions. True kindness in such situations sometimes requires the courage to be firm, to speak truth, and to allow for uncomfortable but necessary conversations. Furthermore, when kindness lacks assertiveness, it often leads to resentment building within the giver. While you may outwardly appear kind and accommodating, internally you might be simmering with frustration, feeling taken advantage of, or resentful that your generosity is not reciprocated or even acknowledged. This internal resentment, even if unexpressed, subtly shifts your energetic field. It creates a dissonance between your outward presentation and your inner state. This energetic misalignment can also be unconsciously picked up by others, contributing to a sense that something is off, further diminishing the respect they hold for you. Authentic kindness comes from a place of generosity and choice, not from a place of obligation or suppressed resentment. When you constantly enable, you inadvertently communicate a lack of belief in the other person's capabilities. Your actions say, "I don't trust you to handle this, so I will do it for you." This undermines their self-efficacy and their sense of personal responsibility. The recipient, rather than growing stronger, remains in a state of arrested development, always looking for someone else to carry their burdens. And in this dynamic, respect often withers. The enabler is seen not as a wise guide or a benevolent helper, but as a crutch, a resource to be used, an easy way out. The recipient may appreciate the immediate relief you provide, but they will not truly respect the hand that always prevents them from learning to stand on their own 2 feet. Furthermore, enabling fosters a sense of entitlement in the recipient. If they never experience the consequences of their own choices or the effort required to overcome challenges, they begin to believe that help is always available, always owed. Your kindness becomes an expectation, not a gift. This entitlement manifests as a lack of gratitude, a disregard for your time and effort, and an increasing casualness in their demands. When kindness is met with entitlement rather than appreciation, disrespect is the inevitable outcome. You are no longer seen as a valued individual, you are a service provider. True kindness, or wise compassion, is about empowerment, not enablement. It is about offering support that builds strength, not fosters dependency. It understands that sometimes the kindest act is to allow someone to fall so they may learn to pick themselves up. It involves setting limits, allowing for consequences, and encouraging self-responsibility. This approach might feel less kind in the short term, as it requires others to face discomfort or exert effort. But in the long run, it cultivates resilience, self-respect, and ultimately genuine respect for the person who had the wisdom and courage to allow them to grow. Your kindness, when it enables growth rather than stagnation, elevates both the giver and the receiver, fostering mutual respect that is earned, not just given. The foundation of wise compassion is self-respect. You cannot genuinely respect others if you do not first respect yourself. Self-respect means understanding your own value, acknowledging your own needs, protecting your own energy, and honoring your own boundaries. When your kindness flows from a place of deep self-respect, it emanates strength, not weakness. It communicates that your generosity is a conscious choice, a valuable gift, not an obligation or a fear-driven appeasement. This inner strength, this calm assertiveness, is instinctively recognized by others and commands genuine respect. They understand that your kindness is not cheap, it is precious. Practically, cultivating wise compassion involves several key practices. First, learn to set clear boundaries. This is perhaps the most crucial step. Boundaries are not walls to keep others out. They are clear lines that define what you are and are not available for, what you will and will not tolerate. Communicate your limits respectfully but firmly. I can help with this but not that. My time is available until this hour. I appreciate your request but I need to decline this time. This communicates that your time, energy and resources are finite and valuable, and that your kindness is given with intention, not without thought. Second, practice discernment. Before extending kindness, take a moment to assess the situation. Is this person genuinely in need, or are they capable of helping themselves? Is your help empowering them or enabling them? Is this a one-time crisis or a recurring pattern of dependency? This discernment allows you to direct your kindness where it will truly make a positive difference, rather than where it will foster unhealthy dynamics. Is in allowing them the dignity of their own learning journey, even if it is painful. Finally, understand that true connection thrives on reciprocity and mutual respect. Healthy relationships are a dance of give and take, where both parties feel valued and seen. When your kindness is met with consistent disrespect, it is an indication that the energetic balance is severely skewed. Wise compassion may sometimes mean withdrawing your energy from relationships that consistently deplete you without offering replenishment, not out of bitterness but out of self-preservation and a refusal to participate in a dynamic that diminishes both parties. In conclusion, kindness is a profound virtue, an essential light in the human experience, but like any powerful force, it must be wielded with wisdom, intention, and an unwavering respect for oneself. When your kindness has a backbone, when it is rooted in self-respect and discernment, it transforms from a potential vulnerability into an unshakable strength. It elevates all your interactions, not only preserving your own energetic integrity, but also inspiring others to rise to a higher standard of respect and reciprocity. Cultivate kindness with wisdom, and watch as genuine respect naturally blossoms in its wake.